It was supposed to be an ordinary blind date, the kind people reluctantly agree to after months of persuasion from friends. Instead, before the coffee had even cooled, the woman reached for the hand of a little girl standing quietly beside her chair. The child looked at me with frightened blue eyes, carefully pulled a folded drawing from her backpack, and placed it on the table. Across the page, written in uneven letters, were words that shattered every expectation I had walked in with: "Please don't leave us too." In that single breathtaking moment, I realized I hadn't been invited to meet someone looking for romance. I had unknowingly stepped into the middle of two broken lives desperately trying to believe in people again. If you believe kindness can heal wounds, forgiveness can rebuild broken hearts, hope can change lives, and second chances matter, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel so our community can continue sharing stories that remind us the world still has good people in it. Graham Mercer had never imagined that his 36th birthday would find him sitting in a quiet downtown cafe wondering why every meaningful relationship in his life seemed to slip away just when it started to matter. He had spent years rebuilding himself after losing both his parents within 18 months and caring for his younger sister until she graduated from college. By the time his own life finally slowed down, everyone around him had already built families of their own. Friends insisted he deserved happiness and arranged the blind date, promising only that the woman was thoughtful, genuine, and looking for someone who valued honesty more than perfection. He arrived early on a bright spring afternoon. Sunlight poured through the cafe windows, filling the room with warmth that somehow failed to reach his anxious heart. Every passing minute made him wonder whether agreeing to come had been another mistake. He rehearsed polite introductions in his mind, convinced that awkward silence would eventually end the afternoon before it truly began. Then she walked in. Her name was Vivian Carter, and she carried herself with quiet dignity rather than confidence. She wasn't dressed to impress anyone. Her expression held the exhaustion of someone who had spent years carrying invisible burdens without complaint. Beside her walked a small girl no older than 7, carefully clutching her mother's hand while carrying a faded backpack almost as large as herself. Everything Graham believed about the afternoon instantly changed. He assumed there had been some misunderstanding. Surely blind dates weren't supposed to include children. Perhaps she couldn't find childcare. Perhaps something unexpected had happened. Yet there was something deeper than inconvenience written across Vivian's face. It was the expression of someone expecting disappointment before it even arrived. The little girl's drawing remained on the table between them, its corners were bent from being folded too many times. Bright crayons covered the page with a picture of 3 smiling people standing beneath a yellow sun. One figure was clearly the little girl. One was her mother. The third had no face, only an empty outline waiting to be filled by someone who had never appeared. Graham felt his chest tighten. Vivian apologized with trembling sincerity, explaining that childcare had fallen through only an hour earlier and she almost cancelled. Her closest friend insisted she come anyway, believing she deserved one afternoon that wasn't entirely consumed by responsibility. She admitted she understood completely if Graham wished to leave. He surprised himself by saying he wasn't going anywhere. The little girl's name was Elodie. She barely spoke during the first hour, quietly coloring another picture while occasionally glancing toward Graham with cautious curiosity. Every movement suggested she had learned to expect adults to disappear. She never interrupted conversations. She never asked for attention. She behaved like someone trying not to become a burden. That silent loneliness broke Graham's heart far more than any dramatic story ever could. As the afternoon unfolded, pieces of Vivian's life slowly emerged. Her husband had walked away 4 years earlier after deciding family life felt too restrictive. Promises of weekend visits quickly became monthly phone calls before disappearing altogether. Birthdays passed without cards. School performances ended with one empty chair. Elodie eventually stopped asking when her father might return. Vivian never spoke bitterly, she simply looked tired. Years of working 2 jobs while raising a child alone had stolen nearly every dream she once held. Friends eventually convinced her to consider dating again, not because she needed rescuing but because she deserved companionship. Even then she almost cancelled countless times, terrified of introducing someone into Elodie's life only to watch them disappear like everyone else. Listening to her, Graham realized this meeting had never been about finding perfection. It was about finding courage. Over the following weeks, daylight afternoons gradually replaced lonely weekends. They visited botanical gardens bursting with colorful flowers. They wandered through museums where Elodie insisted every strange painting contained hidden stories. They fed ducks beside sparkling lakes while laughing at the birds' determination to steal breadcrumbs from unsuspecting visitors. Graham never tried to replace anyone. He simply showed up. Every promised visit happened exactly when he said it would. Every phone call came when expected. Every goodbye included certainty about when they would meet again. For Elodie, consistency became something magical. One afternoon during a community picnic, Graham noticed she wandered only a few steps away before turning back to make sure he was still there. When she saw him smiling exactly where she had left him, relief spread across her face so naturally that it nearly brought tears to his eyes. Trust, he realized, wasn't built through grand gestures. It grew quietly through countless ordinary moments. Not everyone welcomed their growing relationship. Vivian's older brother believed Graham would eventually leave like everyone else. Protective after witnessing years of heartbreak, he questioned every motive, every promise, every act of kindness. He warned his sister that hope often hurt more than loneliness. Those words haunted Graham. He understood the fear behind them because he carried fears of his own. He worried constantly about making promises he couldn't keep. He questioned whether he possessed enough strength to love a child who had already survived abandonment. Some mornings he wondered whether walking away early might spare everyone greater pain later, yet each time those doubts surfaced, he remembered the unfinished figure in Elodie's drawing. He refused to become another empty outline. Summer arrived with bright blue skies and warm sunshine stretching across every afternoon they shared together. Graham helped Elodie learn to ride a bicycle. She fell repeatedly, scraping her knees while fighting back frustrated tears. Every time she stumbled, Graham encouraged her to try again. Eventually she pedaled several yards completely on her own before realizing she no longer needed anyone holding the bicycle steady. Her joyful laughter echoed across the park. Instead of celebrating herself, she turned immediately toward Graham, racing back into his arms with pride shining across her face. Vivian watched quietly from a nearby bench. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine a future that wasn't built entirely around surviving each day. Life, however, rarely changes without testing new beginnings. One crisp autumn afternoon, a legal envelope arrived unexpectedly. Elodie's biological father wanted visitation. After years of silence. No explanation. No apology, only paperwork. The request threw every fragile emotion into chaos. Vivian struggled between protecting her daughter and respecting the legal process. Graham stepped back, refusing to influence decisions that belonged to mother and daughter alone, though every instinct urged him to shield Elodie from another heartbreak. Elodie surprised everyone. She didn't react with excitement, she simply asked one heartbreaking question: would everyone leave again? That question lingered in every room for days. Court-ordered family counseling began under bright afternoon skies, bringing difficult conversations no one wanted but everyone needed. Elodie's father appeared older than expected, carrying obvious regret that time alone could never erase. He admitted fear had driven him away, convincing himself his daughter would be better without him than with someone who constantly failed. His confession didn't erase years of absence, but it revealed something important. Broken people often create broken stories. Healing required truth before forgiveness could even begin. Graham remained respectful throughout the process. He never competed for affection. Never criticized. Never encouraged resentment. Instead, he quietly demonstrated the difference between making promises and keeping them. Months passed. Slowly, carefully, Elodie began rebuilding limited contact with her biological father while continuing the secure relationship she had formed with Graham. There was confusion. There were tears. There were setbacks, but there was also growth. One bright afternoon near the end of the school year, Elodie invited both men to attend her elementary school art exhibition. They stood several feet apart, awkward, uncertain, united only by love for one little girl. Her final artwork hung proudly near the classroom entrance. It showed 4 people beneath a brilliant afternoon sun. This time every face had been carefully colored. No outline remained empty. Graham felt emotion overwhelm him. The painting wasn't about replacing anyone. It was about proving that love didn't always erase the past, sometimes it simply made room for healing. Several weeks later, Graham asked Vivian to join him in the same cafe where they had first met. The same table waited near the window, the same afternoon sunlight poured across polished wood. Elodie carried another drawing. This time she handed it to Graham with complete confidence instead of fearful hesitation. The picture showed a family standing together beneath blooming trees. On the back she had written, in steadier handwriting than before, "Thank you for staying." Graham couldn't hold back tears, neither could Vivian. When he asked Vivian to marry him, there was no dramatic audience, no expensive spectacle, no rehearsed speech, only gratitude, only hope, only the quiet certainty that extraordinary love often begins in the most unexpected moments. She accepted with tears of joy shining in the afternoon sunlight. Years later, visitors entering their home would notice that very first drawing framed beside the front door. The paper remained wrinkled. The crayons had faded slightly with time, yet no one ever suggested replacing it, because it reminded everyone who entered that families are not always formed by perfect beginnings. Sometimes they are built by people brave enough to remain when leaving would be easier. Graham often reflected that he had arrived expecting a blind date and nearly walked away because life didn't match his expectations. Had he chosen convenience instead of compassion, he would have missed the greatest blessing of his life. Vivian rediscovered laughter she believed had disappeared forever. Elodie grew into a confident young woman who no longer questioned whether she deserved to be loved. And Graham learned that real love isn't found by searching for someone without scars. It is found by choosing to stand beside someone while those scars slowly become reminders of survival rather than pain. Before this story ends, we'd love to hear from you. Please leave a meaningful comment telling us whether you believe consistency is the greatest expression of love, or share a moment when someone stayed in your life exactly when you needed them most. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Sometimes life places unexpected people at our table, not to interrupt our plans, but to transform them forever. The greatest blessings rarely arrive looking perfect. They arrive carrying wounds, unanswered questions, and quiet hopes, waiting for someone courageous enough to stay. And in choosing compassion over convenience, ordinary people discover that the family they had been searching for was gently finding its way to them all along.